we're live. Right. Do-do-do. Right. Do-do-do. That link should be with you now there, Craig.
Yep, here we go.
Let me see what you see.
So, yeah, I've got that. I've paused it.
Right. So bear with us, guys, while we get this live Q&A started. So as you all know, who are regulars, it takes a couple of minutes to get everything sorted. Alright, so that's going to my Mac. And here we go. See if I can upload that.
Evening, Stuart.
Evening, Stuart. Yeah, thanks for joining us. So bear with us, guys. I'm going to get this link out all over social media so we can have a great Q&A with a great man that is Craig Penrice.
That's me, that is.
That is you. So that's going out there. Right. Bear with me here, Craig, and folks who are joining us. As you know, it takes a couple of minutes. Oh, you got a nice glass of wine there, Craig?
Well, it's a glass of wine. It's not particularly a nice one, but it's a glass of wine.
Right, so I'm getting this up to social media. So there we go. Here it is. So while I get this sorted, yeah, Craig, what's been happening on your end since last talk? I think it was about 9-10 months ago. What's been going on your end?
Well, we've all been through lots, haven't we? This lockdown, coronavirus, all the ups and downs of that. Beginning to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Work-wise, I think I mentioned last time, my main bit of work is a project that's establishing a new test pilot school. Go on, ask me where is in China. And of course, that's got its challenges with the virus for one thing, but also the distance and the time delays. So, I've been pretty busy keeping that going without being able to travel. So from afar, making sure that the guys there are okay and that the project's progressing. Other than that, normal life as a dad of 3 youngsters and all the joy that brings too.
But are you still flying at the moment?
Not professionally. I've got PPL. That's all at the moment, and I've started dabbling in the mysterious world of rotary wing aviation, which is very scary.
Mysterious, yeah.
My favourite ones are the big yellow ones. What have come and rescued me a couple of times in my career. So I thought I ought to find out how they all work. Yeah. Test pilot school gave you a bit, as I do know a little bit, but learning to do it properly and professionally is a different matter altogether.
Absolutely. So we got a few people in, but while I get the link out to social media, Craig, just give us a brief overview, maybe a couple of minutes of where you started with your career and where you are at this current point.
So as a youngster, school, my born and bred in Glasgow. Not that you could tell it now from my accent, but parents' house was right under the approach to the Glasgow airport, so watching Vickers, Viscounts, Vanguards, Tridents, 111s, all those sorts of things coming in and out. I really got the aviation bug and really wanted to join BEA or BOAC as they were then. Timing was never my strong point. The first Gulf oil crisis kicked in and all the airlines stopped recruiting, and so kind of not my first choice, but then the Air Force came as the option if I wanted to fly, and I'm so lucky that happened, because I think knowing what I know now, being an airline pilot would not have been my thing. So I joined the Air Force, went through the training mill, and popped out as qualified from the Hawk and was posted to the Lightning, which was an amazing thing to start on. I'm sure we'll have lots of questions about that. At the end of my Lightning time, I went to become an instructor on the Hawk at the Tactical Weapons Unit, which was equally great. Ended up running the squadron there. Out of that, was posted on exchange to the United States Air Force to fly the F-15, again as an instructor at Tyndall Air Force Base in Florida. Popped back from there to RAF Valley, again instructing on the Hawk, but only for a short time before a phone call out of the blue from an old friend said, "How do you fancy being a test pilot?"
As you do.
Paraphrasing what he actually said. And so, yeah, I went for a quick interview and to find out what it was all about. And they sent me off to the US Navy Test Pilot School at Patuxent River in Maryland for a year. Best course of education ever. I think 42 different types in a year. Lots of work, lots of learning, lots of writing, but lots of great fun too. From there, I came back to Boston Down, where I was assigned as the Typhoon Eurofighter 2000 project pilot, as it was then. Did 3 years and then was offered a job at BAE Systems up at Wharton, carrying on what I'd been doing there, which I did through until a nasty accident in Hunter in 2003 brought an end to my bank seat flying career. So I had to find a proper job, really, and I moved into business development, trying to sell Typhoon. Got around the world doing that, a few successes, a few failures. And about 6 or 7 years ago, became sort of self-employed consulting in the world of flight test, really. So that's me in a nutshell. There's loads of things coming in here. I can't keep up with this.
Yeah, brilliant. So, yeah, guys, get your questions coming in. But, I'm going to let you loose, Craig, and hopefully enjoy.
I will. John Ellis says, how many times did you get your Martin Baker tie pin? I've got 4 Martin Baker ties, but I've only ejected twice. They keep changing the design of the tie, make it a bit thinner or thicker depending on the fashion of the tie. So I've got 4 ties in the wardrobe, but I only deserve 2, and I've got 2 certificates, and that's all that you should have. There's a very select group. I think it's about 180 people are in the double ejectee club. I think there's 10 or 12 in the triple ejectee club. One of my former students is in there. No connection with that at all. So yes, a couple of times there. Mike Child, Eden Craig, which was the more enjoyable, rewarding flying, the Lightning or the Typhoon? Oh, that's a question I've been asked so many times. The Lightning or the Typhoon? I think all of us in the aviation business, your first operational airplane is like your first love. You're learning so much about yourself and about the airplane and about the job. And there's no doubt that on the Lightning Force we did a great job with a very behind the times airplane. And I loved operating and working flying there. But in terms of pure performance and capability, Typhoon, without a doubt, was a very rewarding part of the career. Being involved in the program at the very start, when we only had development airplanes and we were moving into production, and great getting the requirements into something that was actually worthwhile for the front line. So they're both very dear to my heart. If you're taking questions, what is your opinion on ASRAM versus AIM-9X? Same thing with AMRAAM and Meteor. That's Shiraz Mats. ASRAM and AIM-9X, I'm a bit removed from the actual operational employment of them now. ASRAM has got longer reach, if I remember correctly. Both the same idea, high off-bore sight capabilities, depending what you've got to point the missile with, whether it's just your airplane or a helmet-mounted sight, helmet-mounted display. They both change the face of dogfighting. not safe anywhere. AMRAAM and Meteor by far ahead of AMRAAM. No doubt about that at all. Again, another game changer, and glad that we've got it first. I did the very first AMRAAM firing off of a Typhoon. It was my birthday present in 2001, I think it was. Amazingly fast missile. And never really got involved in anything meteor-wise other than concept studies during my flight test there. Gonzalo de Santana, hello, wherever in the world you may be. Do you have a civil degree? I did. I went to university, got a Bachelor of Science degree in civil engineering. If I'm honest, at the time my interest was more in flying. I was a member of the University Air Squadron, which is an organisation that we have 16 of them around the UK, where you get taught to fly by the Air Force during your spare time at university. I probably made a bit too much spare time during my university degree and ended up more at the airport than I was in the lecture hall. So I got a very average degree by the end of it. What else? A degree? I think when you do test pilot school, you get an honorary degree at the end of it in aerospace engineering, but I don't have a certificate of that stuck to my wall. College degree, yeah, college degree, university degree, Strathclyde University in Glasgow for civil engineering, mixing concrete, building bridges, and then dropping bombs on them as a fighter pilot later on. Red top. What would you say about the red top air-to-air missile? There's a good one. So on the Lightning, we had a choice of two missiles: the Fire Streak, which was the earlier one, and the red top, which was the later one. Similar in terms of their range, which wasn't very great. The red top had a wider acquisition cone that you could launch it in. We're talking 20 degrees against 30 degrees. When you go back to the M9X and ASRAAM, we're talking 90, 180 degrees. So things have come on a long way. In terms of employment, the red top was easier to get an acquisition, but it was harder to get it off the airplane. And when it got off the airplane, it could often go awry. The red top, the Fire Streak was a bit more like an arrow in that it just went straight once you pulled the trigger. When you were talking 1950s or probably 1950s technology, there are amazing things, and the basics of the red top and the Fire Streak you can see when you start to dissect a Sidewinder missile later on. They've all got the same sorts of components, the same sorts of mechanisms in there. Bat21, hello Bat21. How did the Lightning perform in ACM versus its peers of the day, such as the Phantom Mirage 3, Draken, and others? The limiting factor in the Lightning was always its endurance, its fuel capacity, and big thirsty engines. So, but in the actual grunting and groaning bits of dogfighting, I think that they're all pretty much of a par. The one thing that the Lightning didn't really know, it didn't really know about angle of attack, and by that, a lot of airplanes have an angle of attack when they're pulling hard and manoeuvring, and if you go beyond that angle of attack, the airplane will depart from controlled flight. It won't keep doing what you've asked it to do. You can, it might be a little wing wobble, it might be something else that could develop into a full-blown spin when you lose lots of height. The Lightning was very honest. You could just keep pulling, and it would tell you without any gauges to do so that okay, you've had enough now. You're not getting any more. So I think, like for like, we were limited by fuel. And a lot of the times we were also limited by the age of the airplane in terms of how much G we were allowed to pull to conserve the fatigue life that was remaining, because those of you who were around, or those of you who read the history books will remember that the the Lightning was due to be retired, then it was extended a bit because the Tornado program, Tornado F2, F3 was a bit late, and it got extended a bit more. So we were always trying to get that last little bit of life out of the airframes. So yeah, I think we did okay. It's when you get into the things like F-15s and F-16s with much more capable radars and 9G all the time that you start to feel your age, as it were. Hang on. Gonzalo again. A friend of mine wants to use a green aerodynamic to become a fighter pilot in Airbus. Fighter test pilot in Airbus. Okay. That's a very good question, Gonzalo. So it's somebody who wants an aerodynamics degree and become a fighter test pilot. You confused me a little bit by saying in Airbus. I guess Airbus and what used to be EADS military are kind of synonymous now, but to me, you cannot be an effective test pilot until you've got a considerable depth of experience in the types of airplanes that you're then going to test. Because the job of being a test pilot is to assess the platform, whatever it may be, for its fitness for purpose to do the job for which it's been designed to do. So you've got people like myself who've come into test piloting from the fighter background. You've got transport airplane test pilots, you've got helicopter test pilots. And the biggest thing that you get drummed into is, we've all got our likes and dislikes about what we're flying, and we're making recommendations to improve the design. But it's all got to be related to the roles and the mission that the platform is going to do. There's no point jumping in an A321 and saying, this is rubbish because it only pulls 2.5G and I want something that pulls 9G. You're not going to have a 9G airliner. Probably stretching the analogy a little bit much in that example. So an aerodynamics degree, Gonzalo, for your friend, is a good starting point for the basics. Joining either the military and becoming a fighter pilot and getting some good experience in that, and then going into test pilot is good. Or a longer, harder route is going into commercial aviation and then getting a test pilot endorsement on your license at the end of that. Because I think I'd be right in saying that 95% of the world's test pilots are ex-military. They've got that experience, and that's where it's come from. So my friends that I have at Airbus are all ex-Air Force guys, mostly fighters, some of them truckies, but degree for your friend, but the experience he needs to, there is a test pilot. He's testing a brand new product out of the production line where all the experimental development flying's been done before. That's not what I'm thinking of as a test pilot. I'm thinking of the person who's responsible for refining the design, testing the first of type, etc., etc. Elaine, are you excited about the new F-15EX? Yes, I am. I think that is one of the classic best decisions ever. It's kind of like, what do you replace an F-15 with? Well, the only thing you can replace an F-15 with, in my opinion, is an F-15. And here you are with the EX. It's a 40-year-old since the first flights of the F-15As, and so a great airplane now that's got a digital flight control system as opposed to the strings and pulleys. It's great, and the stuff they've done in the cockpit is fantastic. So, was it any better than Firestreak? I'm not sure what the question was there. Was what any better than Firestreak? Red top? Yes, it was, because it could have a larger acquisition cone. Hello, Freckle Punny, nice there. Hello to you too. Alexander Vatter, that's a good, interesting question. Which was the most rewarding Typhoon sale of your time, and what were the biggest competitors, Rafale or? Pretty much it was always the usual suspects in any of the campaigns that we were involved in. So Rafale, Gripen, F-18, EF, and F-35, and we had great battles and great debates, friendly and maybe not quite so friendly, amongst the guys who were involved in the export campaigns. So the ones I was involved in was Korea, which we didn't get, Malaysia, which we haven't yet got, Oman, which we did get, Qatar, which we did get. I wasn't involved in Kuwait, but and Finland, we're still waiting to see where that goes. So, yeah, all the rewarding for the ones we've got. Qatar especially, that was a hard fought competition. You could argue that they didn't really have a competition. They've just chosen all three of the competitors, the F-15, the Typhoon and the Rafale, and they're having them all. Okay, it's nice if you've got the money to do so. So, selling an airplane in an export market is as much about the properties that the platform has in terms of performance, weapons capability, range, endurance, and all those sorts of things. But let's not ignore the fact that it's a big, big, big political decision at the end of the day. And there are certain nations that are better with the backup politics. There are stronger nations that can hold. I use the word advisedly. They can hold a threat above a nation about don't buy them, or we won't come and help you when you need us most, type thing. But there is no doubt in my mind that in the comparison of Typhoon, Rafale, and F-18 and F-15, Typhoon is still, in performance terms, the better of there. If somebody asks a question later on, we could go down the line of 4th generation versus 5th generation in stealth, but I'm not going to go into that right now. That's another big debate. Which was the best you flew out of Lightning, F-15, Typhoon? Typhoon was the best flying airplane, best performing airplane. The Lightning was the most pleasing airplane, I think. US Navy pilots with 4 or 5 ejections are rare now. I don't think, from the last time I spoke to Martin Baker, I'm not sure there's any 5-time ejectees. One guy went over T-30 F-16. Okay. Yeah, ejections, having a Martin Baker or any seat in there is a good thing to have. Not something I would want to do every day. And my first ejection was very much a very short, compressed time period. The airplane's flight controls demanded the stick to move on its own accord, and the airplane followed suit. I tried to move it, I couldn't. I pulled the handle. It was as quick as that. There was no time to think. And I always said in the crew room afterwards, if I ever have to eject again, I hope it's like the first time, that I don't have any time to think about it. So in my Hunter ejection, I had about 16 minutes knowing what was going to come next, because the engine had stopped and we were gliding towards the coast, and I knew what was going to come at the end of it. Did you ever fly operations with Canadians? Yeah, a number of times with the Lightnings and F-104s out of Bad Solingen. Oh, yeah, and F-18s when they first got them. We did some exercises. I've delivered a few Hawks to Canada for the NFTC. Very similar Air Force structure, very similar mindset to the UK. Probably a little bit more traditional in its hierarchy than we are. That's my take on mechanics. Which aircraft? Which aircraft reached Mach 2 faster, the Lightning or the F-15? I think if you looked at the books, the performance manuals would indicate that the F-15 did, but that would have been in pretty much a clean configuration, which we rarely, if ever, flew, and rarely, if ever, had the airspace to do it. Lightning, towards the end of its career, when I was flying it, had so many fire integrity modifications with scoops to venturi out spilt fuel or leaking fuel. It was a much more draggy proposition than it had been when it was a brand new Silver Lightning in the mid 60s or so. The reality of it is you don't often get the luxury of being able to, without a tactical employment being associated with it, just sit and accelerate your airplane to as fast as it'll go. I did have that opportunity once in the Lightning when we were tasked as a pair of airplanes to go out, and we got airborne, and my number two had a problem. He went back home. There was nobody else around except a tanker that was available. So I had a few goes at filling up to the tanker, setting myself up and making the best academic job of going as fast and as high as I could make the airplane go. And you think, I just about did it there, just about got there, then run out of fuel, go back to the tanker, get some more, have another go, get a bit better the third time. So the third time, the last top up, I really managed to get the profile right, and the airplane was still climbing at Mach 1.8, well above the service ceiling that we were allowed to fly to then. I'm thinking, this is a bit stupid. Why have I done this? And better try and slow down because the fuel's running out and I need to get home. And I pulled the throttles back, and the first thing that happened was the cockpit pressurization warning came on because there's not the air coming into it. Then, that's not very good. Put the throttles back up, which was probably not a clever idea either, but the engines worked perfectly. And then I had to try and turn away from land so as not to drop a sonic boom on Grimsby and get down and get slow and all the rest of it. It was a silly thing for a young and inexperienced Lightning pilot to do. No. Ooh. What was the standard operating procedure during a raid on your base? It all depends what stage the pseudo battle was. You could either have a number of airplanes at cockpit readiness assigned to airfield defence. So when they detected a raid was inbound towards you, you'd get scrambled and you'd try and meet the bad guys before they got to your airfield and shoot them down. Of course, in training, you're not actually shooting them down, so they always get to the airfield, but that's training for both sides. Or you could have guys up on combat air patrol already. That's quite a resource-intensive operation, having airplanes in the air all day long. Or at other times, towards the scenario when the big nuclear strike was going to come, we'd have something called a survival scramble. And every airplane on the airfield would get airborne as quickly as it could. And that did include one squadron from one end of the airfield and the other squadron from the other end of the airfield, taking off down the runway in opposition to each other. On the call of runway 03, you're cleared to take off. Runway 2 on hold, and guys would be going as soon as they could manage it. And then you'd all fly off on a standard profile, and depending on the number that you were in the stream, you'd fly out to a certain time, then come back and land, and hopefully what was left of your airfield was there for you to use. Interesting times.
So we're going to interrupt this Q&A, but we've got a brilliant announcement. So Craig is really kindly offered this amazing print, which we're going to offer on probably our Facebook and Instagram page, if you can see it there. But Craig, yeah, we can see that, yeah. So Craig, can you tell us a bit about the print before we go on?
Okay, it's me flying Typhoon development aircraft number 2, unique in its nose boom. It's signed by myself, Mark Bowman, Paul Hopkins, and Derek Ree, who were the 4 BA Systems Typhoon test pilots at the time. My wife is insisting that we have a bit of a clear out, so it's got to go. So there'll be an announcement tomorrow. Mike will come up with that and submit your entry to the competition. It's not a competition, really. Submit your entry, and we'll decide who's going to be the new proud owner of that. In addition to that, there'll be pictures posted tomorrow. Let me just go and grab this first.
I mean, what a great competition this is going to be, guys. You're in for a treat.
Can you see that?
Oh, wow. Fully loaded Typhoon.
Fully loaded Typhoon.
Oh, I'm dropping a
bomb. Have you seen that? And
yeah, I've got that.
There you go.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
The laminated type wall poster things.
Wow, that's amazing.
So there's three things to be had, and I'll pack them up and send them off to you. If the recipients or anybody wish to donate to Fly to Help, which is my favourite charity, then do. There is no necessity or compulsion to do that, but my wife will be pleased because it's clearing out some space in the house.
Well, absolutely, that's like amazing from Craig there. So like tomorrow, guys, I'll let you know how you can win these with amazing, signed posters and stuff like that. So just keep an eye out on our comment section on YouTube, and if you're on the Facebook group, and also on our Instagram page, we'll let you know. But thank you very much, and I'll keep you all updated. But Craig, yeah, get going with the questions again.
Okay, I can do that. Shiraz Mats, was the incredible lightning climb rate a myth of sorts? No, it wasn't. What was misunderstood, I think, was you'd often see at air shows or times the guys getting airborne, keeping it low, and then the runway doing a rotation. Pitch the airplane very quickly into what looked like the vertical, but it wasn't. It was never quite the vertical. That was not the way to get your stellar climb rates. The stellar climb rates were to accelerate and properly transition into a high-speed climb. You're asking about the out climbing F-15 to 30,000 feet. Again, the manuals and the performance data, pretty much all those airplanes, and it wasn't until I got to fly the Typhoon. I've been lucky and flown the F-15, F-16, F-14, F-18, Lightning, obviously too, and they're all high performance machines, and you need a stopwatch and a force gauge and lots of data to actually do a proper comparison of which one's faster or quicker climbing or whatever. You strap yourself into a Typhoon and you don't need any of that. You know that you've got more performance than any of those put together. So there's just an evolutionary change in the amounts of performance that you've got. Oh, SPQR77 took his message away. I was looking forward to that one. What was the most common loadout you flew in the Lightning? 2 missiles and 2 cannons. Mostly red tops. Fire streaks were, by the time I was flying it, a lesser common thing. Mark 100. If you were in the RAF today, what would you want to fly? For me, the F-35 and Typhoon seem very automated and distant from the raw, exciting hands of pilot experience. Correct me if I'm wrong. Automated, they're as automated as you want them to be. The automation is there to help the pilot because in the modern battlefield or battle space, your pilot is there to win the fight. He's not there to fight the airplane that he was flying, which was the case in things like the Lightning and the Phantom and the older generation airplanes, where the pilot was there to look after the airplane. Many times with Typhoon, I said the airplane is there to look after the pilot. You've got disorientation recovery facility. You've got ground proximity warning systems, auto recovery, all sorts of safety devices that we would have just loved to have in the past. An autopilot, yes, and a radar that does amazing things. If that's the automation, that's very handy to have, rather than when I was in my Lightning looking at the radar screen and having to do mental arithmetic to try and figure out by the scanner angle and the displacement what heading and height and speed the target was going at. Your modern radars will tell you exactly what's happening to the contacts it has, and for up to 10 or 20 different contacts at the same time. Quantum leaping capability. If that's automation, I'll have that, please. Thank you. Yes, you can plug in the autopilot in a Typhoon and an F-35, and it'll fly you around a pre-planned loop and get you to a target, and you hit the button, the bombs drop. Why sweat the small stuff? All still very professional, very competent aeroplanes. According to you, how did the Lightning compare to the MiG-21? I don't have any first-hand experience of the MiG-21. F-104 I flew a couple of times during test pilot school. Again, refer to my comment about having to have the force gauge and the stopwatch to figure out the actual performance differences. I remember doing a side-by-side acceleration between an F-104 and a Lightning, and the Lightning was quicker. We started about 200 knots, if I remember correctly. The Lightning was quicker to begin with, and the F-104 caught up, and then the Lightning took over again. This is low level, at 5,000 feet or so, and we're obviously limited by not going supersonic. So, all there. Gonzalo again. Thanks for answering my question. Here's a new one. What do you think of FCAS project and 6th generation fighters? Oh, right. So, question back to you, Gonzalo. What defines a generation in fighters? It's always been a bugbear of mine that a new generation of fighters always seems to appear when Lockheed Martin designs a new airplane. Call me cynical. Okay, I'm cynical. But what is it? There's. I would say that rather than a standalone generation, fighter airplanes have evolved, and here we are at the age of F-35 or F-22, F-35, J-20, J-35, PAC-FA, all those things who are, thanks to the wonders of high-speed flight control computers, able to now give flying qualities to things that were previously unflyable because of their low radar cross-sectional shape. And that low radar cross-section doesn't make you invisible, it just makes it harder for the threat systems to detect you. So yes, you've got to have them. The debate is obviously, what's the cost? If you remember the adage that says quantity has a quality all of its own. So do you have 100 T-50s, not F-50s, T-50s or Hawks, or do you have 20 F-22s? Don't know. There's some very clever people doing lots of clever analysis in there, and one of the things that is worth knowing is how much study is done in terms of analysis before the final design requirements for any new airplane are laid down. So you can use computer modeling to fly a design in a combat environment, and you can model everything in there from its aerodynamics to its thrust to its fuel to its weapons to its radar to its cross-section. All those things are in there, and you run engagements and you see who wins, and you can model the threat, you can model an enhanced threat, you can model a reduced threat, and then you can play around with, well, what if we had more thrust in our new design? That must be good, mustn't it? We'll be able to go faster, quicker. We'll be able to get faster, quicker. That's good. And we'll be able to go higher, quicker. That's good. Oh, but if we're having more thrust, we must have, if we want to stay airborne for the same time, we're going to have more fuel. Oh, we need more fuel. We need a bigger fuel tank. If we have a bigger fuel tank, we'll have a bigger airframe. Oh, that'll be more drag. Oh, we need more thrust. And, you know, the combinations of factors all have an interplay on other factors. So getting the balance of your design correct, I think, is something that's often overlooked in the debates that you see in the trade press and in marketing and all the rest of it. And you know, I've stood up and defended and explained Typhoon's balanced design all over the world now, and happily let anybody come and fly our simulators and fly the airplane if they were test pilots or that so inclined. And the balance is right. The balance is right. That's for sure. You know, the F-35 in the mix in the UK, we've got F-35s and Typhoons. Why have we got F-35s and Typhoons? Pretty much because the Navy shouted loud enough to get itself some new aircraft carriers, and we need something to go on there. Okay, we could have navalised Typhoon if you wanted to. Probably not a great starting point, but you want some airplanes to go on your boats. F-35's a thing for you. Did you ever have a tyre blowout on the Lightning? And is it true that they had to be changed every four landings? I never had a blowout at speed, thankfully. I did have a couple of deflations after a landing where the brake parachute hadn't worked. And of course, if the brake parachute doesn't work, you're employing the wheel brakes a lot more than you would otherwise do, so they get hotter. And the tyres on airplanes have got what's called a fusible plug. And as they get hotter, the pressure in the tyre increases. The plug will go rather than the tyre blowing. It's a safety feature in there. And the second part of your question about is it true they had to be changed? No, very much it depended upon the crosswind conditions. You know, I think it was 25 knots of crosswind was our limit. And if you did a 25 knot crosswind takeoff followed by a 25 knot crosswind landing, and you were a bit ham-fisted and your brake parachute failed, that could be your tyres done in one landing, if you like. Otherwise, in normal conditions, you know, 20, 30 takeoffs and landings. The very high pressure tyres, there's a very high load on them. They did take a lot of wear in there. Mark 100. How did you get into vintage jet and warbird flying? Basically, quite soon after I qualified as a test pilot, I was doing some work up at Wharton on the Tornado program. I was walking through the corridors there, and a chap called Keith Hartley popped his head out the office window and said, "Oi, Greg, are you qualified on the Hunter yet?" I said, "Yeah, I qualified on the Hunter last week. Do you want to come and do an air display this weekend?" And that's kind of how it all started. There are processes to go through, there are checkouts to be done, and you know, approvals to be granted. But yeah, that's kind of pretty much was in the right place when Keith Hartley was looking for somebody to be one of his 4 ship of Hunters at the Biggin Hill Air Show. You then have to get display authorizations on your license and all sorts of stuff. I haven't really done any warbird display flying other than the Hunter. So warbird to me is Spitfire Hurricane. I did fly the Mustang on test pilot school, but that was just a one-off thing. In a while, that kind of flying doesn't exist in the info system. But I would very much love the opportunity to fly Spitfires and Hurricanes and those sorts of things. But although there are more Spitfires and Hurricanes coming into the world right now by restorations and rebuilds, I'm not the kind of guy who goes, "Can I have a go? Can I have a go of your Spitfire, Mister? Please." I'd rather sit quietly and wait to be asked. Mark F. Could the Lightning outclimb or outrun the F-16? again, configuration dependent. If you're going clean against clean, probably not. If you're going working configuration against working configuration, yes. Big mouth, latter model F-16s, probably not. You don't want to be in that position, really. You know, fight the fight, run away, and live to fight another day. What was the first advancement of air combat system in the F-15 that stood out compared to older fighters? You know, if you go and read the history books and look at Colonel John Boyd and I forget the other guy's name now, Pierre Spray. They recognised the importance of energy manoeuvring, and to me, the focus in the past was always about, you know, getting faster, quicker, and getting higher sooner. But part of the energy manoeuvring was being able to also translate that into rate of turn and a rate of deceleration, because you need all those bits at various different times and places during the kind of combat environments that you're going to find yourself involved in. So, you know, having a flight control system and an aerodynamics platform that allowed you to capitalize on the energy capabilities of the airplane was where the F-15 was a big step forward. Fruit noodles, what were you saying there? Fruit noodles, what was the reasoning behind keeping the lightnings at Binbrook all the way to 1986? Was it due to inadequate numbers of Phantoms? No, it was due mainly to the delays to the Tornado F2 that then became F3, because as soon as F3s were in sufficient numbers, the Phantoms were gone too. It was all about having sufficient numbers of airframes on the east coast of the UK, because at the time the threat was massed raids of Soviet fighters and Soviet bombers, that you needed to have lots of numbers of airplanes to take them. And I think the Chief of Staff was an ex-Lightning pilot as well, so that probably helped. Do I think that modern Air Force require interceptors, or can fighters perform their tasks? It depends what you define as an interceptor. Interceptor to me is something like the MiG-25, Foxbat, Foxhound type thing, the Lightning to a certain extent. I think something like the Typhoon, F-15 are, you know, fighter interceptors. They've got the ability to get off the ground quickly, to get up high fast and get out there and perform the intercept part of the mission. The fighter bit is the manoeuvring bit, I think, if you want to put it afterwards, and then having the multi-role bit, be able to protect yourself effectively whilst going on a bombing mission or an interdiction mission of any sort, all comes but part of the balanced design that I was talking about earlier on. Do you mean fruit noodles is talking about 1 and figure 2 fighter in a single seat or 2 seat? I'm not sure. Can maybe come back to that one. Do you think that local production is a good idea when buying a small fleet of fighters? Probably not, would be my answer. There's a lot of manufacturing infrastructure required in terms of setting up a production line. I'm not an economics specialist, but I don't know quite what the break-even point would be in terms of reward versus investment. There is no doubt that the technology and the skills that your workforce acquire during that are valuable, but the trade-off between the cost of acquiring those skills and the long-term benefit those skills bring, that's what politicians decide, not for me. Do current RAF fast jet pilots hardly ever fly, bar instructors and training pilots. I've no idea what the current rates are. I know a few years ago they were looking at sort of 20 to 30 hours a month, 20 hours probably. Certainly synthetic flying, i.e. in the simulator, is taking up a lot more of the training and experience, because it's far easier to get your really complex missions in the simulator than it is to set them up for real in real life. Trying to get 8 target aeroplanes up with tankers and jamming and all those things is a real nightmare. I think you only really get to do that at the red flags or those big tactical leadership program exercises, but you can do that every day, day in and day out in the simulator at next to no additional cost. I don't know what the average flying hours are of a Typhoon pilot these days. Lightning we were doing 20-25, which is probably 30 to 35 sorties a month. As a Hawk instructor, I was routinely getting 40 hours a month. As an F-15 instructor, I was down at 15 to 20 a month. But it's not. It's all about the workload that goes into it, the preparations and the debriefing and the value you get out of it. Nick Breen, hello Nick. My question here is always, which is better, AIM-9 or ASRAAM? And the answer is always ASRAAM. Can you expand on this and give your opinion without leaking secret stuff? I think the answer to that question comes down to the size of the rocket in each of those different ones. And if you work out that thrust is coming from the rocket, and thrust gives you range and maneuvering capability, then that's why ASRAAM is there. But yeah, you have to go down into the secret stuff and into the really confidential studies and technicalities of the missile to get the answer to that. Consider things like its ability to not be decoyed by flares or other methods. So yeah, there's lots of people who are employed, and it costs lots of money to inform the people who spend lots of money to buy the missiles, and ASRAAM's one for me. Here we go. Is the flight control system on the Typhoon the same as the F-15 and F-15? No, it's not. It's definitely not the same. Typhoon is, as you all probably know, a fully unstable aeroplane. By that it means that it didn't have the flight control computers interpreting the pilot's actions into flight control service movement. A pilot could not fly the airplane if you were mechanically connected to the flight control systems. It just goes at somersaulting, and that's a good thing because it gives you more maneuverability. F-18 and F-15 are almost identical in terms of their flight control systems. F-15 EX excluded. I'm not exactly sure what they've done in the digitization of that, but the F-18 and F-15 were essentially F-16 stick top mounted on a moving stick. So it had an element of sensing force as well as sensing displacement. The F-16 stick, as you know, doesn't actually move. It's just a force sensing stick. There's a very slight movement there. Typhoon's stick movement was very, very limited in terms of displacement around the cockpit, because it was all about in the control box that lay below the stick was sensing the demand that the pilot had put on. If the stick was left in the middle of the airplane, there was no demand, so the airplane would just stop and keep going where it was pointed at that time. I hope that's answered that there. Sat a few hours, 4 or 5 weeks ago. My friend has averaged 300 plus 5 hours in the last 15 years. Yeah, I mean 300 hours a year. I don't think it's that bad. to be honest. I mean, it's not just flying straight level. That's a lot of mission planning, a lot of flight time in there. So. It all depends what you do, if those are quality hours or if they're burning holes in the sky hours. Have you ever been on a detachment with the Lightning? I know that these nice and fast airplanes were serving not only airfields to look at. Yeah, every year we had a lovely summer holiday. My squadron was lucky because it was almost in summer. We'd deploy out to Cyprus, to RAF Akrotiri on Cyprus. So the reason for the deployment was to give us guaranteed good weather to be able to do our annual air-to-air gun firing practice. And that was a NATO requirement that said each year all the pilots on the squadron have got to prove that they can achieve a standard where they can have 15 or 20% of their bullets hit the target. Doesn't sound very much, but it's actually quite hard. So we'd fly out there. Sometimes we'd use air-to-air refueling, go there in one hop. But on 3 of the 4 times I went, we staged out in 5 hops, I think, to get there. Middle of France, bottom of Italy. So middle of France, top of Italy, bottom of Italy, Greece and Cyprus. So yeah, it's quite a long thing. And with 10 airplanes, you could be guaranteed that things would undoubtedly go wrong on the way. Deployed to other airfields around RAF Germany and France too.
So, Greg, I'm going to jump in here. Can you maybe pick 2 more questions before we wrap this brilliant Q&A up? That'd be great.
Yeah. I'll pick the one that was there and disappeared. So SPQR-77. Do you think the Typhoon needs more available alpha for phone booth type manoeuvring, such as with the possible Typhoon AMK aerodynamic upgrade? No, is my answer to that. And the reason I say no is because I believe that with a combination of the ASRAM or any other high off-bore sight missile, combined with a helmet-mounted sighting system or helmet-mounted display, no sensible chap would want to get himself into a slow-speed, high-alpha fight. It's all great airshow manoeuvring stuff. It might be quite macho, 1 against 1, but if when you get yourself slow and high alpha turning in that phone booth, as you say, you're a sitting duck for the guy you haven't yet seen. So my plan would always be stay as fast as I can and use the combination of the helmet and the missile to do the work for me. The AMK aerodynamic stuff is strakes and other bits and pieces that were going to be put onto it. I don't know where that rests in terms of a customer requirement right now, but Craig's opinion is no, you don't need it. Money better spent elsewhere. And let's scroll down, see if there's anything at the bottom we're not seeing now. No, I wasn't ever posted to Germany. I visited Germany a few times. Most fun flying Lightning, most professional success flying Typhoon. How useful are do not exceed speeds? Are they stringently observed or more of a guide? They need to be stringently observed. Something I didn't realise before I became a test pilot as to what's gone into that limit, and it can be the limit of never exceed speed or never exceed altitude or never exceed G. Is there out of good scientific engineering and mathematical backgrounds. There is a margin in there, but if you start exceeding that margin or more than one, you don't know what damage has been done to the airframe below there. So luckily, the never exceed numbers for things like Typhoon are very big in the first place. Stealth is more the RCS it's defeating than the several Eddie G. No, that's too difficult for now. It's too late. Right, I've scrolled to the bottom and I've not had a sip of wine for ages. So, Mike, I think for now. There's some really good questions in tonight's lot. Really educated and intelligent questions in there, and I really thank you for those guys. They've been keeping me on my toes and keeping me away from my glass of wine's more the point.
Well, what a great Q&A there with Craig there that was, and thank you very much for coming on. And if you missed, if you joined late, go back to the video halfway through. We've got an amazing competition. Craig is kindly going to donate a signed poster of, I guess, like, was it a Eurofighter Typhoon and a couple of other posters, and we're gonna like put that on I think our Facebook group and also Instagram, so I'll link them in the description below. But Craig, thank you very much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure as always.
My pleasure more than that too. Thank you guys for some really challenging questions.
So hopefully we can get you back to your wine, Craig, and have a nice night.
See ya.
Cheers.
Thank you, mate. Take care, guys. Bye, guys.
Cheers, Craig.
Bye-bye.